When you say yes to God, I always say when you say yes to the promise, you also say yes to the process. And sometimes you don't know what that process is going to look like. My initial mindset, or my mind state, I would say, after receiving the keys was, one, I was just in shock. I was in shock that the keys were actually in my hand. I was in shock that I was actually walking in this building and that it was mine. And I was shocked that God did it. But then my mind instantly went to what's next. I knew that they were going to expect the money. I knew that I would have to figure out the money. And I was beginning to feel like a thief. I feel like I stole this place, even though God gave it to me supernaturally. You know, those thoughts that were in my head previously before going out there, some of them started coming back, but in a different way, you know, as a thief or as, you know, you're a scammer because you took this building, but it was really just favor. And later on, I realized that the enemy was trying to get me to view the favor and view the miracle as, you know, a bad thing, like as something that I was doing wrong, but it was just all God. I'm like, well, if he did this, he could do anything. He can literally do anything. I came out here, got the ticket the day before, came out here, not even 5 hours ago did I have anything in my hands, and I still got the key supernaturally with just faith and obedience.
I remember she was at the airport and she was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it, you know, and my sisters and I were like, you're definitely gonna, you know, you're definitely gonna get through this. The Lord truly favored her because when she called us back, she received the keys to the property. So that was like crazy because those moments don't really happen. Like, you know, you don't really just get the keys to a business right away like that. And seeing that like truly allowed me to know that God had his hand in it.
So once I received the keys, I immediately kind of went to kind of go figure out like about the funds. You know, I was, you know, dealing with investors, speaking to different people. I actually did have some people that were actually really interested. But it didn't make it to the point where we were actually cutting a check yet. So prior to even any further conversations in regards to that, on August 16th, I received a phone call, and it was from the realtor that I was working with. And my previous video, I told you that no one really had any idea what was going on. They knew that it was, you know, this was a God thing. I'm sure they had other questions, but the money was never a question. I don't think that it even ran past their mind about the funds because I got the keys, but I didn't provide any funds for it. So he called me because they had reached out to him about the funds. And my mind went haywire almost. I was like, on my birthday, to be able to receive that news that, wow, like, you know, you now have a deadline. Like, what's the update? What's the status? We need to know something. Like, you know, it should have been sent, you know, this is 2 weeks prior that I got the keys. So 2 weeks after, they still don't have the funds. I have possession of the building and I have the keys. And there's no funds there. And he called me and I'm just like, God, where are you? August 16th is my birthday. So they called me on my birthday. So I was even beginning to feel a bit sad because I'm like, this is my birthday. Like, this is the news that I get on my birthday.
During certain moments when certain things didn't go the way that Aaliyah wanted them to go, or even for myself, like just being in this journey with her, you know, we wanted things to go how we wanted it to go, like right away. And seeing that, you know, it didn't always go that way, processing that took a lot of faith. It required a lot of faith, a lot of trust in God, even when certain things didn't go the way that we wanted it to go.
So I knew that God was calling me to move. I didn't really have any, like a time frame. I just knew that it had to be, you know, as soon as possible because I already got the keys. So I'm like, I'm already gonna be putting this place over. I had took my kids out of school. I began to homeschool my kids for that year. And so next came the place. And I had to surrender my place at the end of September. And it was a very uncomfortable feeling because here I was in this place for six, almost 7 years. It was my very first apartment, and I had a great rent. I had a 3-bedroom apartment. My kids had their own room. I had my own office. Like it was really, it felt like why would you give something up like this? I didn't have any backup plan. I just knew that God was gonna come through with, you know, if he came through for the keys, I know he's gonna come through for a place. So I had to surrender it. So I returned to Toronto in October with my children. One, I just had a phone call with the landlords, and they just kind of wanted to just follow up. They really loved the idea. They loved the concept of what RBP is, and they really wanted everything to go through. So they just kept doing, like, putting back the deadline. They were willing to just work with me, whatever works, so that I can get in this place and so that I can get the funds to be able to do so. But I had a meeting with them, and I was on with 2 other partners, and they just pushed the deadline back. They were like, hey, we'll give you this amount of time. But then it came to a point where, and that's later down the line, where they just kind of gave me a lot more time, but they just kept pushing the deadline back. But I wanted to get in there because I wanted to actually be in the unit. I wanted to pray. I wanted to even just find other investors. And when I went down there, I did meet with an investor when I was down there. So it actually worked out pretty well, and I was able to anoint the place. And yeah, so I just it received an extreme amount of favor. And at that time, I still had the keys. This is two months later, no money. They are aware of everything. Not everybody's aware of everything. And I still had favor. You know, a lot of times I'm like, well, did I have favor because they didn't know? But this just showed that I had favor even with them knowing.
Shout out to my guy.
So there was 2 investors that I actually met when I was over there. One was more into like real estate. They came and scoped it out. They were definitely interested in the place. He was interested in the place. I met another one who actually had an actual faith restaurant actually, but it closed down. And so I was introduced to him, and he was actually really interested. And so, you know, we ended up having a meeting, you know, just kind of figure out like different, you know, ways of how they can invest. But ultimately, it didn't go through. When the offers didn't work out with the 2 investors, I did take it. I feel like I took it as rejection and redirection in a way. Redirection because I believe that if God wanted me to have funds from them, then I would. But rejection as if you just said that you love this concept. You said that you wanted to invest in this concept, but why didn't you? You know, and so it was beginning to feel like what is going, like, you know, what is exactly going on here? Like, you were interested, you seen the space, you were completely amazed. But ultimately, deep down, I knew that God didn't have them invest. And I think that's another part that I had to deal with, because sometimes, you know, we can be upset because something doesn't work out. But if God is the reason why something doesn't work out, then we just have to really just praise Him, because He sees everything.
So while watching Aaliyah during her journey endure the challenges, it really influenced me, because a lot of times people can give up when certain things don't go the way that they want it to go. And Aaliyah didn't. Like, she continued the course. So that really inspired me.
So actually, shortly after them, I came back, and I was working with somebody at the time. I was working with a lady who was assisting me. She was supposed to be assisting me with getting funds. So she set up this meeting, and they were actually another group of investors, 2 investors, and they were definitely interested in this concept. We had a meeting, and we ran through the numbers. Everything looked really well. But they wanted to know about the alcohol sales, because in the restaurant industry, if those who know about numbers and sales projections, the liquor sales is what really drives up those projections. However, I had my projections set up where we only have wine, so there's no like hard liquor, there's none of that at this restaurant, because that's what God instructed. But all of my other numbers still made sense, and they were intrigued by those numbers. But because of the known aspect of alcohol sales being a huge thing, they wanted that to be in there, and they were asking me, like, you know, would you consider that? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't, because God wouldn't want me to do that. But all of the other numbers made sense. I was still made a huge, like a high percentage net profit even without having alcohol sales, because it's not just a restaurant, it's a lounge, it's a boutique. There's so many other aspects. There's going to be weddings here, there's going to be events here. There's so many other aspects where money and income is going to be generated. The alcohol sales shouldn't be anything, right? And so I wasn't willing to compromise because God wasn't. And I sent them the proposal, which was $1 million. And they were ready to take it, but they wanted me to compromise for the alcohol sales, and I wouldn't take it. because I knew that this was a God project and I can't do things my way.
What I have learned from Aaliyah during this process that I can apply to my own journey is really standing on the word of God, standing on the truth of who he is, no matter what it looks like. Knowing that he said he will do it, so he's going to do it. Just because I heard him say that he's going to do it, that doesn't mean it's going to be right now, in this very moment when I think it's supposed to be.
So shortly after I met with that investor, I was paired with another investor. This is an investor that the lady that I was working with, she referred to me as well because she was supposed to be, investor relations. And so she connected me with this investor that she found, but it was like an investor group, I would say, like a company, a servicing company. And so everything sounded great. And I also want to mention my mindset at this point. I just wanted to get these funds as well. I was in a place of almost ignoring my discernment because of my need for, like, my financial need in that moment. I was just so ready because I expected by this time for the restaurant to already be up. Two, I knew the funds would need to be here and the deadline just kept, So I was connected with a investor group or investor, and they're introduced to me. Everything sounded great. They asked like the actual questions that a loan officer would ask. And backstory, I actually am a loan officer, a mortgage loan officer, so I've done deals with loan officers and things like that, but I've never really did it at that time on the business side, on the commercial side of this amount. Now I'm into commercial, but now on this side, I never dealt with that. So typically for residential, we look at different things and what they would require. We're looking at, personal things. Here they're looking at business things. So they request a business plan, they request a pitch deck, they ask questions about projections, which all makes sense for someone that wants to invest money. So they end up pretty much, I sent them over everything. They had all of my information, all of it. And it was time. There was one part I was asking God, because I remember I had a dream actually. And in this dream, I remember I was walking, it was late outside. I was walking and there was this car that came by, and there was these two people in this car, and they were trying to give me money. They were just willing me, like giving me cash in my hand. But I didn't want to take it because it was suspicious. Like it felt like, why are you so willing to give me this money? Like they didn't even ask me any questions, just so, oh, you need this for your restaurant or something like that. And then they just gave it to me. But I didn't take it because it just felt too suspicious. And when I woke up, I could have took that two ways. I wasn't sure if I was taking it off like, oh, don't block your blessings by not taking something that's being offered to you, or be careful of what's coming. And I should have listened to the second one, be careful of what's coming, because that company ended up being a scam. And they wanted me to put down, I think it was like ultimately altogether, I think it was about like 19,000 or something, or 20,000, something like that. But I ended up getting them down with the cost. And they were like, it's points and that it's like a loan origination fee or something like that, which there are loan origination fees, right? So that also didn't really, but it was almost like a down payment, like for the loan origination fee had to be paid first, and then the money would be dispersed. And so this time it was actually, I didn't have all of that money, and so I got a loan from, someone I actually grew up with, and they sent that money directly to them. I sent them like the loan paperwork and they sent that money directly to them. So we got scammed. And it was the most uncomfortable feeling ever, because I'm like, wow, Lord, I did all of this. I'm trying to do all of this, but yet I got scammed and they took $8,500. So shortly after that, I just felt the need to just go. I believe God was telling me, or I know God was telling me, like, you just need to get out there. I was waiting for the conditions to be right, but I knew that if I waited for that they would never be right and I would never just go. But I just felt the urging. And then also too, I think like a week before, like I felt led to be there before the year was up. I felt led to bring the new year in Toronto, or in Canada, I would say. And so my mom, funny story, a week before that, she just bought my kids snow boots and warm clothes. I'm like, wow, this is perfect. I'm literally gonna need this. But yeah, I end up just heading out there. And at that time, I think I only had about like $150 to my name, because I didn't mention, but I had like stopped doing loans. I heard the Lord say to put down the loans and strictly depend on Him. So I went from making you know, thousands and thousands of dollars per month to now depending on God to be my provider. And it was a very uncomfortable season because I haven't been in that place before. But I was strictly depending everything on him. And so I went out there with $150, and this was actually my first time driving out there by myself with him, because when I went and talked to her, I went with someone. But yeah, we just went and God provided. So I had someone tag along. This was actually the person that was assisting with investor relations. So previous to that, she was assisting with even real estate deals. She was a realtor. I was a loan officer. We were both in the faith. I told her about the idea. She was just completely for it. She was excited about it, and she was just kind of supporting me along the way. I felt comfort in her support because it felt great to be able to have somebody in the business world, but that also understands the faith aspect, and I can still believe without asking all those questions like how, when, you just know God's gonna provide. When I first went out there, she wasn't there. I was out there with my kids for a few days, and then she ended up coming down later that week. But I didn't really feel led for her to come then, but she decided that she wanted to tag along, and I was just here for her. I'm like, well, I'm gonna be in another country by myself, you know, might as well have, you know, some extra supporting hands. And so she kind of just came along with me on the journey. So there was a point in period where when we went down there, we were kind of going to place. We would be at places from, it could be 1 week, it could be 4 days, different Airbnbs, hotels, until we found favor with a landlord that allowed us to actually stay way longer, and it was a beautiful provision. And I also want to mention too that every place that we went to was absolutely beautiful. We never stayed in a low-class place. God literally took care of us. We stayed in penthouses, we stayed in 4-star hotels, we stayed in amazing places. So like God really took care of us. But in one of the places, I just began to start seeing red flags. You know, there were certain meetings that I would bring her to, and she would just be talking about herself and her businesses, trying to get traction to herself rather than RBP, and I began to see like a disconnect. But then I had in my loan business, I had on the side, that's why I stopped residential full time, but I was still dipping and dabbling in commercial, but not completely. Like I just had a deal that came through, which happened to be someone she knew, and I was, you know, close to her at a point in time. And she kind of reached out to her. She heard that I was working on them with a deal, and she reached out to them directly and basically tried to take the client away, you know, and tried to work with them directly, even though she's on the realtor side. But she wanted to figure out how she can actually be the loan officer on their side and collect that commission. And so she told me, and this actually happened once before, and I should have listened the first time, but she actually had went back to America for a period of time. And the same night that she left, my son had a dream about a snake being in the house. And then he said that the snake bit him. When he had the dream of the snake being in the house, I instantly knew it was her, and I was asking God for confirmation that he was confirming that this was her, because right after that dream, that's when she called me and told me about that she reached out to this client and was trying to get them financing, but she wanted me to know, which I felt uncomfortable about. But that same night she called me was the same night that my son had a dream again about a snake, but this time he said the snake bit him. And the night that he said the snake bit him was the day that she called me and told me that she was trying to take the client away. And because this happened before and I've seen so many other red flags, God immediately said no. I was now in a new space. I was in more of like a permanent place, and I didn't want her to be there. Like God didn't want her to be there. And so I had to cut all ties and disconnect myself. But it was definitely a Samson and Delilah moment. It was definitely a trying to steal destiny, or I knew God wouldn't allow certain things to take place if I continued to have this person around me. So when she left, I felt like a burden was lifted, honestly, because I knew in my mind that the red flags were going off, but it's just by certain conversations, but I just kept ignoring them. But that really, like when she left, that place opened up for us, where we stayed there for a good amount. Like we were there for, you know, a couple months or so, and we had so much favor with that landlord. We were like literally like in like the lower part of a mansion, the last part, and it was beautiful. Like my mom came down, visited, and things like that. But I was just in such a better place. There was more favor that was released, provision was there. It was a different space. I definitely felt better mentally, but I also felt like, wow, this person was next to me for so long and I didn't say anything. Like, what other things, not only did she lead me to, because she also referred me to the person that got scammed. So she went to somebody that got scammed. She betrayed me in so many different ways. What would have happened if I would have just ended that relationship early? There was a lot of what ifs that were going in my mind. So I ended up coming back to the States in May of 2024. And so I actually came for an event that I went to in Atlanta and I felt like to go to. But I drove back and then I ended up taking a flight. But the night that I drove back, I actually was heading out. You know, the ride was fine. I was actually getting supernatural provision along the way. I was getting deposits that were coming in, things like that. But as I was preparing to go to the airport, I think it was like 4 o'clock in the morning or so, I had to wake up. When I went outside, my car wasn't there. It was completely gone, and it got repossessed, and that was a challenging time, because I think what was more challenging was the fact that I couldn't pay for it because the funds that I did have, I was using for the actual hotels and the Airbnbs and the places that I was staying. It's like, you know, that was a comfort because I actually had the funds, but I were using it to other things. Or even the fact that I could have actually worked my one officer job and I would have been able to really provide and do what I had to do. So it was a trying time, one, because I knew that I could have had the funds, two, because I surrendered, but I knew that I could have kept it if I just went back to work. But if I can be completely honest, when I went outside, I felt complete peace. I literally felt fine because a few weeks before that, God showed me my new car. He showed me my Porsche, he showed me my new car, and I kept seeing it everywhere. And so I knew, and I had confirmation, that's the car that I'm getting, like that's my car, that's gonna be my car. So I had to sort of my BMW, but it came to, I knew that I see my next car. So I felt so much better with it. I was just like, okay, and I just had my mom take me to the airport, and that was that. So during this journey, I felt like I was being crushed. I felt like I was being pruned. There was nights where I felt like I was the one that was being beaten on the cross. I felt like it was a crushing. But it ended up being a beautiful crushing because the crushing turned into something so much beautiful, but it was literally me dying to all of my flesh. All of the things that I held on to were all going away. I had my identity so much, like, it just even in the business world, oh, I'm a mortgage broker, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm able to do this. I had all these things kind of still attached to me, and these things were being broken off. Like, it was so many emotions that I felt, but I feel like I was being the one being beaten on the cross.
The hardest part about watching my sister go through this type of warfare was really just, I think the season of her and her children being in Canada and things being so uncertain, especially like being a mom. I can only imagine just the anxious feelings, maybe fear. I can only imagine just some of the things that she might have been going through during that time.
So because I felt that way, I was a little bit timid about going back because I didn't want to have to go through those same things. Like, although God did provide, I can honestly say that he provided every single time. There was not one time that I went without. It was still a moment of having to use faith in every single second. And I was tired of using faith in every single second. I wanted a place of feeling comfort, you know, like for once, of not having to, but I ended up going back. I felt Lord telling me to go back. It's time to possess the land, to go back. And so I brought my sister Tati with me, and we went up there, and God was giving us instructions. We were praying at different times, like the different watch hours.
Hey guys, we are about to head out to our first mission. What is our second? Right, it's a mission. It's just a mission. Our first midnight.
Yeah. And we were going around that building 7 times and praying, anointing the floor, anointing the grounds around the restaurant, praying 7 times. And I remember on this last time, a security guard came out and he was like in a frantic. He's like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Is everything okay? Like, why are you guys going around? Like, he was in such a frantic. But he didn't come around the 3rd time. He didn't go around the 4th time. not the 6th time, he came around the 7th time, and that's when he came out. Even when you think about the Jericho and when the walls came down, it was on the 7th time that they went around and they shouted, right? So the 7th time that we went around, we anointed the ground. The 7th time we went around, we anointed the ground the 7th time. And that's when he came out with in a frantic. So I knew that something spiritually happened in that moment. So I went back home, I came back home, and then I went back again. And this time I went back, it was pure bliss. Everything was provided for. I was there for a good period of time. Everything was provided for. I was able to see the goodness of Canada, because when I was there, I feel like my vision was almost, I don't want to say perverted, but it definitely still had the residue of the previous season. And God was trying to, like, I want to show you something different. I want to show you the goodness. I want to show you what the promised land actually has to offer, because at that point, to be honest, I'm like, Lord, you can have Canada. Like, if this is what it was, I don't want, you know, but he showed me the goodness. I was provided for. I was in a beautiful place downtown. The food was amazing. Like, everything was just perfect. And I was able to experience the bliss of Canada. The enlistment is the journey and the process after you say yes to God. I like to think about it similar to when you're going to war, when you sign up to be in the army, right? Military. You sign up, you know that there is going to be battles ahead. You know that there is, you know what's ahead, but not necessarily knowing exactly what it necessarily entails. And when you're on war, you know, you're depending on them to feed you. You're depending on them to provide you places. Sometimes you can get up and you can move somewhere else. Sometimes you can get up and you can go be placed somewhere else. And that's how it is even in the kingdom. When you say yes to God, I always say, when you say yes to the promise, you also say yes to the process. And sometimes you don't know what that process is going to look like. Sometimes the process could just be, I think there's different areas depending on what it is that God is trying to do through you, so that it can be to his greater glory. It can look different. But for me, it looked like surrendering my home. It looked like surrendering my comfortability, my job, my car, moving to a new place that I've never been to before. Because even prior to this journey, I've never been to Canada before. So moving to this place that I've never been to with two children, homeschooling them in the midst of all of this, trying to launching a restaurant with not much experience. You don't have experience in business, but not necessarily experience in that industry. But he equipped me for all of that, you know. So even learning the basics of that, learning into the financial aspects of actually running a successful business. Like, there was so many things that the enlistment looked like. It looked like going from place to place, just like the Israelites when they were on their journey to the promised land. They picked up, and there's so I think it's 42 times. I can't quote the exact number, but they picked up and they went set up tent in different places multiple times. That's how it was with us. We would get up and then we would go to the next place. Sometimes we'd be there for 2 days. Sometimes we'd be there for a week. Sometimes we'd be there for a week and a half. But the provision was day by day. Our manna was day by day, like it was for the Israelites. And although, as I'm saying it, it does sound like, oh my goodness. But I can honestly even say that I did still have somewhat of a peace, because I knew that God was in control. And every place that I went to, it was beautiful.
Mommy told us that we were going to Canada. I feel nervous and excited at the same time, because it's a whole new country I'm gonna be going to, and it takes time to feel like it's home there.
What was your favorite memory when we were in Canada? And what are you looking forward to next?
The hotel.
The hotels?
Because I like the room, and it has comfy beds, and we can order food. Buffet service.
And what are you looking forward to, Zane?
No, for the second time.
Yeah, when we go again. What are you looking forward to when we go again?
big house we're gonna have. And mommy's husband.
Hey guys, it's Aaliyah, the owner of Royal Bliss Palace Steakhouse and Lounge, and I am excited to officially call all kingdom builders. If you have a skill, if you have a talent, if you love to build, if you love to paint, if you love to do anything that involves with building a place, we are calling on you to come and partner with us. Partner with Royal Bliss Palace as we get this place together and open for grand opening. Every hand matters, and we would appreciate you joining forces with the RBP team. So reach out to us at info@royalblisspalace.ca, and we would love to chat with you.